Hi, my name is Russ, and today we're going to jump into another technical configuration video. Today we're jumping into the Ruckus Virtual SmartZone controller. Right here we've got version 7.1. You may have an older version, that's okay. The settings are pretty much identical, going all the way back to when they first enabled the service back in the 5.1 code series. They've changed a couple of requirements, but it's pretty much going to be the same as what you see here, and that's okay. So we're going to jump right in here. First, we're going to look at our wireless LAN. Now, I've already created it here, so we're going to jump in and look at this configuration just to save time, just so you don't see me typing on everything. So right here, we're going to be using the standard name we use, which is the period. Yes, the period. That makes it appear first. WayFi Cellular Booster. We're using the default wireless LAN group here, but you can use another wireless LAN group if you'd like to segment a little bit more. This is a Hotspot 2.0 access authentication type, 802.1x. We're using WPA2 for the greatest amount of compatibility with the most devices. We are enabling fast roaming, mobility domain ID 1, and we are requiring MFP. Jumping down here, for data plane, you can route it. We don't by default, but you can put it through using the Ruckus generic routing encapsulation. For our Hotspot 2.0 profile, we're going to do a custom profile here, of course. You likely don't have one that's already there. So we're going to look at our operator profile and jump into that first. So for our operator profile, we're going to add our standard list of domain names here. It is going to auto order them, so it's okay. That looks a little different when you put it in. This allows us to have the great list of 250 plus carriers around the world, including MNOs and MVNOs. For friendly names, just use English. WayFi Wireless is the name, all caps. And then for the operator icon, it's going to be English, of course. This version does require an icon. The older versions, like in the 6 and going back to all the way to the 5 code, does not. If you need an icon, your onboarding engineer will go ahead and get that for you. And that's it. Next is your identity provider. Unfortunately, I can't bring it up on this screen, so we're going to jump into that after we go through some of the options that are here. For advanced options, make sure that internet is turned on. We want to make sure that we've got internet access here for these connections. Access network type is chargeable public. IPv4 address is port restricted with a single NAT address. Of course, change it if you have more applicable setup in your network. IPv6 generally is not available, but if it is, feel free to add it. And you can have the standard connection capabilities here. Of course, modify this as you see fit. And that is really a lot of the information there that'll let you get it set up with a basic config. Now we're going to jump into kind of the meat of that identity configuration just in a second here. Leave authentication server turned off, and accounting server want interim updates every 5 minutes. We do highly recommend wireless client isolation, so make sure that's turned on, including isolating unicast packets and isolating multicast and broadcast packets. For our radius options, we are going to do a user-defined NAS ID, work with your onboarding engineer to have that set. That is going to be unique on a per location basis. So for a timeout, raise that to 20 seconds, 3 retries, and we'll do 5 minute for reconnection to your primary NAS. Called station ID, leave that default, which is the wireless LAN BSS ID, and use single session ID accounting, make sure that's turned on. Firewall options, we're really going to skip over this. Of course, use the settings most applicable for how your network is set up. Last is advanced options. So there's a lot of settings in here. Again, a lot of these are best practice. So really, Wi-Fi calling turned off just because of the way Ruckus does it doesn't mean you can't use Wi-Fi calling without diving into the specifics of how they work. Go ahead and leave that turned off. For your client fingerprinting, go ahead and leave that turned on here. VLAN ID for your access VLAN. I'm using 101 as a standard guest VLAN. Of course, make this VLAN that matches your network configuration. Make sure that we enable dynamic VLAN. For some reason, Ruckus likes to default to turn this on. Make sure this is turned off. Broadcast SSID turned on. We need that broadcasted out. Client load balancing, you can turn this on if you like. Generally, we turned it off. Proxy app is turned on. Make sure that you have DGAF or disable downstream group address frame forwarding checked. For max clients, generally do about 100, 127. Again, do what you feel is right for your network. 211D turned on. Agile multiband, we're going to turn that off. That's kind of like MLO. Just due to some configuration issues with devices, we're currently not utilizing that. But again, if you're seeing it works well in your network, you can turn it on. 211K turned on, anti-spoofing turned on. I'm not going to go through all the settings here, but your ARP request rate limit, your DHCP request rate limit, going with the defaults here of 15. Force DHCP. So we do like this setting here. This is something nice that Ruckus has to disconnect the client if they do not get a valid IP address ever after 10 seconds. Make sure your DTIM interval is set to 3. This is really good for Apple devices. And then go ahead and use the directed MCBC threshold of 5. You can go ahead and collect the TXR statistics and terminate sessions that are idle for 2 minutes. That looks pretty good. GT key rekey turned on. Use session timeout. We're going to go with the default here, 172.800. Wi-Fi 6.7. Yes, we love Wi-Fi 6 and Wi-Fi 7 even more. OFDM only on. For min rate here, we're going to use 12. Of course, use what you like. PMK caching support turned on. OKC support turned on. Time schedule always on. Allow band balancing turned on. For QoS map set, not everyone utilizes it, but we do advise you turn it on. Can use a multicast filter if you like to just filter out certain clients that you don't want connecting. For SSID rate limiting and multicast rate limiting, you can use these settings. These are turned off by default, but if you want to rate limit the traffic here for your network, feel free to. We're going to skip all the way down here, airtime decongestion, make sure it's turned on. Transient client management, make sure that's turned on. We're going to use a join wait time of 30 seconds, a join expire time of 300 seconds, and join wait threshold of 10. We really like optimized connectivity experience. Make sure that that is set to 15 milliseconds for your probe response delay. And then we like to use neg 70. Some people get a little more aggressive here, maybe do like a neg 80, neg 90 for your RSSI-based association rejection threshold. We don't turn on the reduced neighbor report just because it may cause issues with some of the beacons. We try to be compatible with as many devices as possible. You can have the AP channel report on if you like. And then that's pretty much it. We're going to have user role access, allow all, QoS mirroring enabled via protocol. And that sets up your wireless LAN. Now, through here, we did kind of skip through identity pretty quickly. So that is actually a piece of this that I'm going to jump into. And that's going to be in our Hotspot 2.0 section here. We'll look at our identity provider configuration here because this is where we have to bring it up. So just use a standard name, WayFi identity provider. We're gonna have our standard network list here. This is our public list. For our private list, when you onboard from our engineers, they'll go ahead and add a couple networks to this list. For your realm, we kind of use just a WayFi realm just to kick this off. So this is really simple. Just use for the name WayFi, and then really important thing, just make sure EAP method 1 is EAP TTLS. For your home, usually what's called RCOIs, or organizational IDs. Make sure that these are all added in this list here. Fortunately, can't control the order on Ruckus, but that's okay. Just make sure that they're all in there. Make sure that OCE or online sign up and provisioning is turned off. Really called OSP, which is a little fun. For authentication, so this is where you set up really the connectivity here. By default here, we do have Radius, but of course, when you onboard with one of our engineers, we are going to prefer to use RadSec, basically turning on TLS. These are kind of our default public configs. They'll work with you to get that all set up with your certs. So you're going to have a primary server and a backup server, usually called a secondary server. So that's going to be, we're going to give your primary IP and your port. Your port's going to be the same for your secondary, just a different IP address. For health check policy, response window of 30 seconds, zombie period of 40, revive interval of 120, and no response failed, no. For rate limiting, for your maximum outstanding requests, we go at 10. We're really responsive, so that's a pretty good threshold there. We want around 70% of MOR, or maximum outstanding requests, and then a sanity timer of 10 seconds. And that gets you set up here. So that's basically what you do to set up the no match and unspecified for your authentication. And then next we need to have our accounting set up. So for no match on your accounting, basically it's going to be very similar. It's just going to be the accounting traffic. Again, we do heavily prefer RadSec, but for our public configs, we have just Radius here as an example. Going to have an IP address. These are going to be on ports. These ports are going to be just one port above what you have selected earlier. And of course, when you work with your engineer, these ports may change. I'll give you this shared secret as well. For response window, 30 seconds, zombie period 40, 5 interval 120, MOR 10, threshold 70%, sanity timer at 10 seconds. So it's very similar to the last set of settings that we've got here. Congratulations. Now you've got it all set up. Then it'll give you a nice review screen where you see all these settings here. So You are going to have some different PLMNs. Your onboarding engineer will help you get that configured. And then your RCOIs will be this here. Can't control the order. That's okay. That's just how Ruckus works. And then, of course, we'll have here both your radius or highly preferred RADSEC settings to get you up and running here so that all those authentication requests and all that accounting traffic gets back to Wi-Fi so we can get all that traffic over to the carriers and make sure that they're being billed appropriately for it. And that's it. That's your identity provider. So really, after you set all that up, that's it. It's really pretty straightforward once you're used to it. Ruckus has a little bit more clicking around. I mean, that's okay. We see that sometimes with a couple of different vendors here. Also see our Ruckus One video. If you are moving to the new kind of SaaS service that manages all this, it works a little bit differently. The interface is drastically different. And it's pretty straightforward to configure it, but it's very hard, if not possible, to review your configs. So as always, I've had a great time showing you how these settings work on Ruckus. Like I always say, please go to our website at wayfirewireless.com to learn more. We'd love to schedule an onboarding with you, help you see what it's like to now get revenue coming in from your Wi-Fi. And like I always say, make it easy, make it simple, make it Wi-Fi.